My name is Niklas Helgesson, and I'm the CEO of e-Comero. We specialize in aiding companies selling in Europe. It's mostly online, but we also have some retail customers, and it's a nice synergy between regular stores and online sales. One success factor that has been for us is our background in retail and in commerce. So we understand business and are not just an IT company. We have two business areas. One is consulting, which is this one. We talk business strategy and implementation, how to drive sales. And we have one with these platforms where we work as an Adobe commerce partner and Microsoft partner delivering e-commerce platforms and ERP. We're based in Gothenburg, Sweden, and we have a large port, and we are a key harbor for both in and outbound goods for Swedish companies and consumers. So I have 20 years of experience in aiding customers succeed online on selling e-commerce, and I'll try to condense this into 20 minutes and give you my best advice for succeeding in selling in Europe and in Sweden. So the topic today is successfully selling online in EU, which is Europe, which also includes Sweden, of course. So it's more of a holistic approach than just Sweden, but the same success factors applies, of course. So how is to sell in the EU? Is it easy? Is it medium? Or is it hard? What do you think? It is, of course, all of the above. So I'll go through some findings we have, and I'll address where some of our customers fail to sell and what the issue is, where they fail to drive sales, and what you can think of to avoid those mistakes and how to succeed. So in EU, we have a common in the market, which means that you have a customs border which is outside the EU. So once everything is paid duty with a warehouse or a 3PL provider inside the EU, it's transmitted to free commerce. So we have a homologized legislation, which is everything that is approved in the EU is free to sell, which is like CE markings for electronics, etc. And the citizens within EU have a good faith in the legal system, and the system works. So they feel like Dan on DHL said, they're comfortable to purchase and trust the government with to protect the rights. We also have good infrastructure. So it's 3 to 4 days with lorry or land, as Dan on DHL said. So you can reach most of the EU within a couple of days. And the citizens have excellent internet access. So 90% of EU households have high-speed internet now. So it's a lot of consumers who are available to shop online. And the EU consumer also has a high willingness to buy online. So you reach a lot of consumers if you go via marketplaces or e-commerce platforms. But more challenging is, of course, that there are old countries in EU. So every country has their own culture and their own shopping preferences. I will also send this slide to everyone because I need to speak quite fast to go through this. So I will send out the slides and some information after this. They also have their own language, which of course is also a challenge, but also an opportunity. I will get back to that later on. Some EU countries have their own currency. Not all have adopted the euro. Some have their own, like Sweden has the krona. So that's something to take into consideration. And they also have their own import duties, which means that some fashion, fabrics, etc. has a certain customs fee for Sweden and another for Germany, etc. And they also have their own unique VAT, which is a sales tax. You can go around this by using a bonded warehouse somewhere in the EU. So you can send your goods to a bonded warehouse, perhaps with DHL or someone else. And then the taxes will not be paid until the goods are circulated to the consumer. Then can be decided if it's for Sweden or Germany, Spain, etc. So there are some ways to get around that, but it's a complicating factor, of course. And what's hard is, of course, that there's a lot of competition in EU. So it's a focus market for a lot of global companies, and that of course means that you are competing with a lot of American and other companies. And to be successful, you really need to localize, and I will get back to what that means to the full extent. And also, not all EU members, all countries that are members of the EU are good markets. Some actually have the consumers have low disposable income, or there's a small population, which of course also decreases the market. There are some legislation about consumer rights, which is quite protective. So there's laws that allow the consumer to return goods purchased within a couple of weeks because they have the option to cancel the order, etc. That's quite extensive in the EU. So how do you sell this profitable to the consumer? And you need to, of course, translate your content, your products, your table, your terms and conditions, your content, etc. So you need to, if you're addressing the Swedish market, you need to have Swedish content on the site, and also terms and conditions, because there is the GDPR is a regulation that regulates customer data protection, and it needs to be available in the local language. So there are some legal requirements, some requirements that actually is entice to drive sales. So you need also to display the correct currency and the VAT, which is calculated on the country the product is sold to. You need to have a choice of local payment methods in Sweden and in Germany, etc. You need to have a choice of shipping options. That might be DHL and the service points, etc. services, or Pakistan Post, etc. But you need to provide some options, as Dan mentioned, for the package boxes, etc. Because the customer likes to be able to choose freely. And you need to have localized content. So what many do that fails is that they set up a store and they put English and perhaps Swedish, and they roll out in all markets, and they market via Facebook and Instagram, etc. But they have English content, and the consumer would like to have a local language. So the German consumer will perhaps use Google to find the best pants. I don't know what it's in German, but he will probably quote it in German. And then he will find your site, but it will be in English. So there will be a mismatch. So just to example, because everyone except Visa says the commercial, but that's not true, because you need to have localized payment methods. And in Italy, for example, say you have a woman who buys a dress online from your Pakistan store that has Italian language. She will need to have a certain payment method. That means that the deliverer would go to her house, and then he will give her the parcel. She can go in and try the dress on, and if she doesn't like the dress, she can return it to that shipping provider at the door without paying. Or if she likes the dress, she will come out and say, I like the dress, I would like to pay for it. And then the driver will have to accept cash to pay for the order. And if you don't have support for that payment and shipping, you will sell less in Italy. So it's a matter of finding the local customs or culture fit in to be able to sell to the different countries in EU. There are some others, they prefer to pay with something called Sofort in Germany, and in Sweden we have this Klarna, which is large. It's kind of an invoice for citizens. And this is an example with H&M, and they have, when you come to the site, you have a lot of countries. You select Swedish, you will have a Swedish site, which is the menus, the content, etc. And if you select something else, you will have this is I think Indonesia. It's probably the same site at the back end, but it's different storefronts for different countries, so it's fully localized. Just to exemplify. And this is something you need to be successful, because we have a lot of customers who come to us and say we have tried to be successful in Germany, but they have not sold. They have presented products, but they have not actually spoken with the German consumer and adapted to the different needs and culture fashions that the German need. So, and one thing is also important, because you need to make a profit, because to get a high turnover it's not that complicated. You can pay a lot for ads and you can drive a turnover, and then you will have some returns, etc. So just to be profitable is kind of key in this, because you're a businessman. You need to make money. You want turnover. You want profit. And thing is, you pay a lot of ads. You have perhaps transaction fees from marketplaces. You have a high return rate, etc. And that will dig into your profits. Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos, they will get all the money. So you need the repeat purchase customers to be successful. And this is an example of the average revenue per visit in an e-commerce store in Europe. And if you have just plain visitors, the average order value or revenue per visit is 175 euro. The exact numbers isn't that important, but the relation between them are. And if you have returning customers that actually has purchased something before from you on your e-commerce site, then the revenue is 3 times higher. So this is actually beneficial because the cost of acquiring that customer is the same. All things equal, the revenue will be higher. And if you have someone that is a repeat purchaser that has bought from you 2 or 3 times previously, then the revenue also further increases. And many retailers misses this, that they only work with the converting visitors into customers, and they repeat that phase because that is one that costs a lot of money, because that's where you have to pay the customer acquisition costs, which is marketing, Facebook ads, etc. So this is something you need to look into, having a system in place to actually be able to find your ambassadors or your excellent customers who really likes your products, and just to tailor the communication in marketing towards them, to have a specific channel for your already existing customers. And here, of course, the newsletter and emails are an excellent tool into getting repeat purchase, which costs quite low, doesn't cost quite much. So it's quite cheap way to get repeat purchasing. We also did some talking about marketplaces, etc. This is my personal view on it, but if you have an e-commerce platform, you own that, you need to invest in setting it up, etc. You will have a higher profitability because it's no one to share, no kickback to the marketplace, etc. You can reach the entire EU, you can reach the entire world. And so it's a full potential of new markets. If you go in a marketplace, there are some limitations. Of course, it's a low threshold. You can get into the markets quite fast. It's quite easy to set up, as we saw. There are some limited reach, and by this I mean if you go with eBay, which is a large in Europe, there are some countries that are larger and some countries that are smaller. If you go with Amazon, they are larger in Germany, which have been in 20 years. They're quite so large in other countries. So in the marketplace, you will have a small slice of that country, which you are unable to get around. You have to work with the consumers that are on that marketplace, unfortunately. The good thing is that those are not mutually exclusive. You can set up an e-commerce platform to sell to the entire world, and then you can hook on some integrations to marketplaces. So it's fully optional and possible to sell in your own e-commerce with an integration to Amazon or eBay, etc. But since that is less profitable sales, I think that the main channel should be your own channel at first. And it's also, of course, a good way to test some markets. If you want to try selling in Poland, but you don't want to set up the entire localization, etc., it's a good way to use the marketplace to get access to that market. The risks, of course, is if you have your own e-commerce platform, it's your responsibility. It's your store. You need to do technical maintenance. There might be some hackers, there might be some new updates to the platform, there might be other issues, and it is of course no guaranteed success. In the marketplace, it's hard to get the repeat customers because you're competing with everyone else on the marketplace. It's expensive because you pay a lot of kickback for the sales. There's of course no guarantee for success otherwise. It's same as your own store. And there is of course unfortunately lock-in effect, which means if you work with a marketplace and you sell a lot, you get the order, but you don't get the customer data. So it's hard for you to do the repeat purchase thing because every customer is anonymous, sort of. And if you have your own website, you can track customers. So if the way we set up it, if you come to my store and look at the dress, you don't buy anything, but I can do remarketing, and I can Mustafa, I can target you on Facebook and I say, this dress you want special price 50% off, and I will get the purchase. It's harder to do with the marketplaces. There are some functions, but the baseline is that you don't own the customer data, the marketplace does. And that's, I think, the most critical factor that is hard to scale the business profitable. So, and on consumer behaviors in Europe, in EU, 85% of consumers conduct research. And they look into you as a vendor, like into the brand, they look into the dress, what other consumers think of it, etc. And in Europe, it's Google. 93% uses Google to do their research on products and companies, and that is good because of two things. They as I mentioned earlier, they input best pants for hiking, and they get the reply from Google. And if you have done your localization correct, the consumer in that market will do a local search in their language, and it's a good chance you will actually rate quite high on Google free organic search by doing that. So you will get some interest from customers just by doing the localization. It's not the entire way, but you'll get a good way on the way by doing that. And the consumer that has found you via Google has a higher rate of conversion, which means that they're more probable to buy than those who have seen your Facebook ad, etc. So it's quite a good, profitable channel to work with. And if you've done your localization, you need, of course, to work with the SEO as well, but it's quite mandatory to do localization to be successful in that. What do we most commonly do for our customers? We set up a business plan because it's important to actually have a plan or strategy behind this. And we have some examples we have done for retail companies here in Sweden. They would like to start and sell for a certain amount of money, and they fail at the business plan because they're not, say they target the Stockholm and they want to sell dresses for a certain amount of money, but there's not a lot of women in Stockholm to get that budget filled. So you need to have a sound business strategy and plan in the bottom of this to be profitable, and then set up like a matrix that they work with different countries at the same time. You don't say we're going to sell to Germany, we want to sell to Sweden. You take 5 to 10 countries and you localize in everyone, because with the correct system and the correct strategy, it's quite easy to localize. It's just another dimension on the base products, as you saw in the H&M example. And then you can see where you get the traction, and you can put the paid adverts, the marketing budget into those countries to grow faster. So, and I'll show you because what markets are profitable or interesting in the EU, and this is we've taken the gross product per country, and we've added the disposable incomes per citizen, because it's an average of how much money you have to buy things after taxes, house, car, etc. are paid, your spendable income, and we've multiplied that with the number of citizens in each country. So you can see the markets are large in Germany, Great Britain, which is no longer part of the EU, unfortunately, France, Spain, etc., and it decreases. And if you come to the far right, there's Lithuania, Bulgaria, etc., that are quite many citizens, but they have low disposable income, so the chance of you to actually make a large sale there are less. This is like a margin fringe market. And of course, a key component in this is to be cost efficient about your marketing, because there's no problem whatsoever to pour money on Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and the other guys, because they will charge you heavily for the marketing. So if you work with the localized content on your site and you work with the SEO, you will have a good influence of customers and business from Google organic search, which is no cost per transaction. So it's a good way to build it. You can add some Google ads on top of that to retargeting the customers that has been on your site to actually say they've viewed 5 red dresses, you can put in a customized ad to them to buy this dress. So you can work with that dimension, or to remarket to your current customers as well, of course. You can work with the paid social, Facebook, etc. And you can also work with marketplaces, and you should definitely work with email as a marketing channel. So my conclusion, first, the challenge, of course, is the same, regardless technology. If you choose marketplace, you choose own commerce. It's all about selling. You need to sell to the customer. And what difference this is, if you choose e-commerce or marketplace, it's a different tool set to produce the same result. So this is my contact information on a company. If you have further questions, feel free to contact us about selling in the EU. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here.